they were often the outcasts in society, and even in the most civilized society. Anyone in need is an outcast because most people really would rather spend time, it's more convenient to spend time around those that aren't so needy. But yet we're called to care for those in need.
This is a Truth Transforms Truth Nugget, a daily dose of truth for your daily transformation.
It might come out in complaining and grumbling and ungratefulness, but basically anything that's not good and upbuilding, as Paul talked about in Ephesians 29, what's not fit for the occasion, what's not appropriate, what's not giving grace to others, we could file it under the category of ungodly speech. And I'm quite sure we all have a ways to go there. And so Paul's not saying that if you ever speak ungodly that you've got a false religion and you're not a Christian, but we should be growing in that area, and we should be growing so that our speech is consistently more godly and consistently more gracious. And if God's doing a work in your life, you'll be seeing that growth. But James wants to remind us speech is pretty important, and we need to move away from sinful speech and move forward in more godly speech. Well, in order for our religion to be pure, it must embody godly speech. And it must embody godly care. And we find that in verse 27. Verse 27, a religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction. This is godly care. This is a compassion for others. He points out widows and orphans because all throughout Scripture they're seen as the impoverished, they're seen as those that are in affliction, those that are in great need, and we need to have compassion for those that are in need. We ought to have growth in a more compassionate heart. As we love God and follow Christ, we ought to have more of the heart of Christ. So we should be growing in compassion for those that are greatly in need. They were often the outcasts in society, and even in the most civilized society, anyone in need is an outcast because most people really would rather spend time, it's more convenient to spend time around those that aren't so needy. But yet we're called to care for those in need. And I think we should do that individually. We should see ways to do that as a church together. And we need to care for those in need. We need to have compassion for those in need. We see from this passage that pure religion, undefiled religion, is a religion that truly does have godly care. And James illustrates the need to help the poor. In James chapter 2, he writes, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And now James is talking there about whether someone has a true faith or a dead faith. He is speaking of salvation there, but there's a sense in which believers, true regenerate believers, can have a dead faith that's inactive, that's not working. And one of those aspects that James points out is that if there's no care, if there's no compassion for others, then there's a sense in which this faith is dead, apathetic at least, that it is dying. So we need to have a compassion for others. If someone came to you and asked for help, they've got their family in the car and they need help in some way. They say, well, I could just have my tank filled up, my gas tank filled up so I can get somewhere. How do you respond? If you know that you have the ability to help, you have the ability to help them out, I hope you say, well, I respond by getting them gas. That'd be a good, very helpful thing to do. But if you respond by saying, well, I've got a little bit of extra money that I could help out, I could help them out and buy them some gas, but you just say to them, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. I just preached on prayer last week. Prayer is pretty important. Prayer is never an excuse, though, to not do something. And so that would be what James says is worthless. That would be wrong if you're able to help them with their physical need and you don't. And so we need to have godly care. We need to care for the afflicted. We're told that it's important to visit orphans and widows. We're shown how important it is to have concern for those who are afflicted. And so maybe you can think, how are you showing concern for those that are afflicted? Are you concerned? Are you praying for them? Are you looking out for them? And are there any steps you might take? I'm sure you know somebody that needs help in some way. Are there any steps that you could take this next week or month to help somebody out in some way? That might be something to reflect upon.